thank God, and we thank also the leadership and the management of Island 2992, Island 92 News, and we have in the house the honorable, not in terms of ministry, but in terms of journalist competence, Mr. Emil Lee. Thank you so much for being here. We also want to recognize Swaliga News, also want to recognize, like I said before, SMN News and Carib Quest, and those of you that are taking videos and taking pictures, and that also will help us to share on social media. As Minister Taklin said, this fight continues beyond this event. So we thank you in advance, all right? So as we get into the meat of the matter, we're going to get into what we came here for, and we're going to open up the panel and get to hear what these lovely and professional persons have to tell us where it pertains to breaking the cycle, not only in this nation, but the region and the rest of the world. Let me begin by first letting you know my name is Apostle Dr. Ivan Valerie, and yes, I'm a pastor, but before I was a pastor, I have some background in journalism, and so I will try to tap back into that field as I do my task. I want to begin with addressing the Honorable Parliamentarian, Mr. Franklin Myers, with the first question. And the question to you, Mr. Myers, is, St. Martin has laws and committees designed to protect its citizens, yet we still see cycles of dysfunction and poverty continue. What accountability or mindset shift is required within Parliament to transform policy from political talk to generational healing?
Thank you, Dr. Valerie, and welcome to this forum to all of the guests and to my fellow panelists. To get into your question, there's a couple of things that we have to take into account. St. Martin has received a separate status now for the last 15 years. We're in the 15th year of becoming a country status, and why I mention this is because for the first time, prior to that, all laws were done by the Netherlands Antilles. All the laws that were on the books was island territory laws, so they were not federal laws. As such, we have a lot of committees of parliament, indeed. One of the things that I believe that to build our fight against poverty, it has to start with education. If you do not start to educate and equip your people for the future, which is coming, what ultimately happens is you start to import your resources. And as you import your resources, then what ultimately happens is your people constantly fall behind. This is the situation, what has happened to St. Martin over many years. Where there's a vacuum, it must be filled, and it will be filled. Now St. Martin we find ourselves in a position as government. How do we undo something that has, and interestingly enough, the minister's speech said it all, because when you start to undo, what you do not want to do is unravel, because you still have to maintain a structured society in which both persons that are from here and persons that are born to be here can thrive. And the only way you can do that, again, is through legislation. But again, one of the things you have to take into account is you cannot alienate the ones who have contributed to this society. So to answer your question in short, yes, it's through education. I believe if you arm your people with education, you prepare them for the future, and ultimately the future will be theirs.
Thank you so much, Mr. Myers. I want to just jump not too far from you, but to former Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson. Our justice system is built to punish, but rarely to restore. What would justice look like if healing was part of the sentence? And what cultural and institutional silences continue to protect abusers more than the victims?
Thank you so very much for the question. Firstly, good morning to everyone who's present, to my esteemed fellow panelists, and of course to the organization for putting this together. I think it's a misconception to believe that healing is not a part of our justice structure. I say that because we are currently in what I believe is a chapel, right? This is a, many persons within the spiritual realm comes to our institutions, the prison, Miss Lally Center, and they give counsel. They give support to our inmates. They, even within our SCIS, which is our probation department, they themselves gives a lot of counsel and guidance to individuals who have ended up in the wrong side of the law. We have victim support services that's also been taking initiatives that even our prosecution department has taken the role prior to victim support services being established. As a matter of fact, when I came in as Minister of Justice, I spent about a half day with the prosecutor's office and just being introduced to the various sectors within. It is within that institution that I was given the experience of a young lady, if we can remember. There was a gentleman who was walking the beach with his daughter down at Kimsha a few years back, and unfortunately he was robbed and killed in her presence. This young lady had to come back to St. Maarten for the trial. And it was during an interview or just being asked, you know, we recognize that that experience of seeing your father being taken from you in such a brutal manner was terrifying, was traumatic. But she expressed that even though that was all stated, it was the fact that she did not have that type of support. She was in a hospital, it was cold, no one asked her if she wanted a blanket to cover up, no one, you know, sought to understand what she was going through at the time. And so the prosecution explained to me that the victim support services is so needed. And I made that my mission within my tenure as minister, to have victim support services be established, and I'm happy that that is the case. But outside of that, we have so many other platforms within our society, and you know, MP Myers made mention to the use of the word education, and that is something we lack to do to our society, is be more upfront and bring awareness of what does exist within our communities. That's why the misconception is there that healing is not a part of the process. However, when we think about recidivism within our individuals who continue to commit crimes, it may appear that that is not the case. But there are so many other factors that play into that. We have to recognize that sometimes there are individuals that have an imbalance within their makeup. They have personality disorders. That narcissistic spirit, I call it a spirit and not necessarily that of a diagnosis, but it's an evil spirit within, and that needs to get addressed, because the thinking mechanism of individuals who are under that narcissistic spell, they don't think like normal individuals. Their violence level is totally different, but I'm no expert where that's concerned, and I won't act as, but we have to understand that individuals who act out a certain way, it's not a one blanket situation. And so the type of attention that is needed to address these factors goes way beyond just incarceration. And those who are working within those institutions know that. Even our prison officers, they play a role as well that I don't think they get enough credit for, in terms of knowing how they counsel these individuals that they are interacting with day to day. So I would say to you that I believe that there's a serious misconception that healing is not a part of our justice. It's not just about punishment. They are not just locked away and not dealt with like human beings. Recently, the minister, Honorable Minister Taklin, published that, and I'm happy to see that, Minister, that the prison is on the way, initiating the contact with UNOPS and getting that going. I'm really happy. the whole spectrum of how that new prison is coming. It's not just about the building, it's about the type of services that are being offered within. And I remember seeing a comment where someone felt like as though that kind of money, 52 million, should not be invested into a prison. That were innocent, that went through certain experiences we know nothing about, that has shaped them into, you know, the aspects of who they are. Doesn't mean we have to turn our backs on them. And we're not trying to give them a hotel, but they don't need to be in deplorable conditions either. And so the fact that we are now progressing positively to invest monies into putting into the, not just the institution as a building, as I said, but the services that are coming within that are going to help these individuals be better when they come out. The GED program that I was able to reestablish is a part of that. And it's not just about getting a high school diploma, but the literacy that's attached to that. And compliments to Climb Foundation, Dr. Yadira Boston and her husband, Dr. Pierre, have done a fantastic job to get graduates out of that. All of that is a part of their self-development, building their confidence, making them stronger and greater so that when they come back into society, they are better individuals. Yeah, forgive me, but was the question two-pronged? It was two aspects to it? Sorry.
You did well.
I'm good?
Yes,
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was our former Minister of Justice. And thank you again, Honorable Minister Tackling, for the great job. And because we know we are heading in the right direction. Absolutely. We have started maybe a bit shaky, but I'm seeing that once God put the right people in place, things will change. I'm going to go quickly to Cassandra Richardson. She is of Island. And when I spoke to her, she said, I'm of Island, but I need to be part of this forum. Cassandra, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to let him prepare Cassandra as she comes in. And I'm going to go quickly to Fenna Arnell, which is the head of the Department of Public Health, VSR, representing the minister that is actually unavailable to be in the room this morning. Fenna, my question to you is, public health focuses heavily on the physical, yet emotional wounds are destroying our people silently. What would it take to make mental and emotional wellness a national health emergency?
I think Cassandra's trying to talk.
Yes, I think there's an internet issue.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this important discussion. And I really commend you and the organizers for creating this space that challenges us to look beyond treating illness and to focus on how we build wellness together. And to provide a response to your question, I think it's important to note that traditionally, public health is expected to and ultimately primarily focuses on what we can see and measure. So the physical, the clinical, you know, like what we see, the visible. But emotional wounds such as stress, grief, trauma, they are often just invisible. But yet they quietly shape how we live, how we relate to others, how we work, and how we recover. They determine whether families stay strong, whether communities hold together, and ultimately whether a nation actually thrives. So we are also aware that physical and mental health, they are interconnected. When a person lives with chronic pain, fatigue, or illness, it wears their confidence down, it limits participation, and impacts their emotional well-being. And this is the same for persons who are mentally struggling. So when they're dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, it also weakens them physically. Mind and body do not exist in isolation. In the Caribbean, and St. Maarten is just exactly no exception, the repeated encounters with natural disasters, Melissa's the last experience. Yeah. And then when we last experienced the pandemic, this revealed how fragile the traditional institution-based model of care can be. So these experiences showed that waiting until someone reaches out for care is too late. By the time I find the energy and the courage to seek care, the emotional and social impact has already spread into my home, into the schools, and into the workplaces. So the customary approach that we refer to as institution care, it's clear now, it cannot achieve the goal of a healthy nation. So in response to this, the ministry, we started a shift. We begun to shift the course from institution to a community-based approach. We just recently developed a national, 10-year national mental health strategic plan, where it's forming a turning point, a deliberate move from institutional models to the community-based approach, where we focus on prevention, early support, inclusion, resilience, and it aims to ensure that mental wellness is not something we respond to after a crisis, but something we build into everyday life. By this, we hope to strengthen collaboration across the ministries through the Health in All Policies approach. Because one thing we recognize is that mental health, or health in general, is shaped by the environments we create. And I'm saying nothing different than what MP Myers just stated and former Minister Richardson also stated. Education, housing, income, safety, they all play an integral role in the community we are trying to create, or that we have created. When these, and I call them determinants, are addressed collectively, the result is a society that supports mental well-being from the ground up. And we cannot, absolutely we cannot ignore the influence of our digital environment. Social media, it can be a powerful platform for connection and awareness, but it also magnifies anxiety, comparison, and pain. Yeah. Online bullying or hurtful comments can leave lasting emotional scars that affect confidence, self-worth, and even our self-health. So promoting wellness today must therefore include promoting digital responsibility, empathy, and kindness. So our partnerships, policy reforms, growing emphasis on data, workforce development, they all form part of the broader shift from the traditional system to community-based. And I think the greatest insight that we've gained is that every person who goes unsupported on this island or in this community, that pain into their family, that brings that pain into their family, their workplace, they bring it into our community. So when one person struggles, the entire community struggles. There's no them, it's only us. So when we ask what it takes to make mental and emotional wellness a national emergency, I don't think we need a declaration, because it is and must be a sustained commitment. It takes recognition that mental health is a foundation to national development. It takes coordination, bringing together all sectors from across the board. It takes commitment, protected resources, strong governance, and data to guide decisions. And it takes a collective will. The understanding that all hands on deck, that's not a slogan. And it's definitely not a luxury. It's a must-do. Because if we could plan for hurricanes, we could plan for healing. Yeah. Wow. If we can mobilize for outbreaks, we can mobilize for emotional recovery. A healthy nation is not defined by the absence of disease, but by the presence of connection, compassion, and community. So in many ways, this very gathering is a reflection of that principle. Yeah. A community-based approach in action, where you took the lead, where knowledge, partnership, and empathy, we came together, we're here together to shape a more resilient future. And that's a vision behind the 10-year strategic plan, stronger minds, stronger communities. And this here is the beginning of the working of it all. Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Wow. Absolutely. And indeed, that is the vision. We all came together. And I thank each and every one of you for saying yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we get Cassandra, or we still have some technical difficulties? We're going to move forward. The church is very important to be part of the healing. Therefore, we have now the Honorable Reverend Dr. Nolan Nanton. He's a family mental health master coach. I always say he wears so many hats as a pastor, as a friend, just an ear to listen. Pastor Nanton, why is it that leaders, pastors, and families on this island often suffer privately until crisis strikes? How do we normalize healing, therapy, and truth-telling among those who lead others?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ann, and your team for organizing such, I think, needed forum. And good morning to all, and to my panelists, our fellow panelists who are here. Good morning. It's great to be in your company. I think I'm the least of the apostles. And to the question that is at hand, I believe that we have to start to pay attention to the quality of our people. I think it's very important. We're talking about leadership, we're talking about persons in pastoral leadership and varying aspects of the community. So I think it's important we start to pay attention to our people and beckon on our people to pay attention to themselves. We do not address core issues, rather we address branches, if I can put it so. One of my mentors speak about fruits comparing to roots, and sometimes we might address an anger issue when really and truly it's an abandonment issue or a rejection issue. So the quality of our people are very important. The question is complex. If you can't give one answer to it, because there are varying reasons why a person or persons might choose to remain silent on their issues. Persons sometimes are facing deeper family issues and they don't want to share that. So I will answer the question by putting a question. When persons open up to talk about core things that are affecting them, what environment do we find them doing so in? We talk to our friends because we feel safe. If we go to a council room, it's because we feel safe. So are we producing a safe enough environment to allow our leaders to be human? If you take our political system, for example, I'm so happy that we were at least able to break the fallen cycle. And at least we are able to have one government go through the full tenure, and I hope that that can be maintained. But what is the reason why we have some of those things happening? Can our leaders be transparent? Can they be vulnerable? Can they talk about the issues that they're having? We have leaders that become burnt out. The demand is so heavy on many of our leaders, and the expectation is so high that sometimes we are asking them to be beyond what they're capable of being. Sometimes I believe that we are almost asking them to be God. We are asking them to be perfect, and they can't. And we are not making room and space for the fact that we are all fallible. We are prone to mistakes. We're not making room for that. We lavish, we sensationalize mistakes and errors that our leaders may make, and at the same time we offer no solution to help them. Very seldom do we have constant talk and repetition of the good that they do, but make them do one bad. And God bless Moses, they are coming down strong. It's not different in the church. It's the same thing. The church plays a very pivotal role in the community, but it's not different in the church. People have issues, but they are not able to be vulnerable about it. I started my conversation by talking about the fact that we have broken people. I deal with families and persons in health, apart from my pastoral role. And you would be amazed the amount of brokenness that people are carrying. Many of our families are dysfunctional. Many of our people come from single-parent families where they are coming with wounds that sometimes they cannot explain, and they have leadership abilities and skills, and they attain to leadership, but the brokenness did not leave them. And so you find that in their functioning and the expectation that will come upon them, some of that brokenness will come out. If you don't deal with the fact that, and let me use this, if you don't deal with the fact that sometimes, you know, a person might be abandoned by their father, or their father might not be there. If you don't deal with the issue of anger that can come from that person, when they are in position and they are pressed, what do you think you will get? They will not tell you that my father abandoned me and I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that he was not there. They will not tell you that I never hear my father say, son, you are courageous, you are a gift from God. They will never tell you that I never hear my father say, son, I love you, be it male or female. The daughter might not share that with you. And we see these behaviors sometimes, but we might see the anger. We might see the need to prove themselves to others. We might see the separation. We might see the withdrawal. But the deeper issues, they can't share that. And God help us if somebody, I know we have medias here, but some of our medias are good and some can be very destructive. And God help us if they find out certain things about that person's life and they just throw it within there for people to think about, and without consideration of the greater damage that can do to that person. So leaders are not allowed to be vulnerable. We are not creating a safe environment. I wish, St. Maarten, we can create a safe environment politically, religiously, in every aspect. I wish we can do that because the challenge is real for many persons. But safety gives you that confidence to open, and it creates a therapeutic space for persons to be able to heal and be human and walk out with confidence and better be able to serve their community. And I don't think that we have created that, but I want to propose that that is something that is necessary. We have, I can't use the statistics for St. Maarten, but I will use general statistics. It is said that around 1,500 or so pastors leave the pulpit. That is an American statistics every month. And we have persons here that are going through extreme pain and so forth. And some are desirous of leaving, and some are leaving. We see churches spring up, we see churches go down. And some of the cause of that are deeper issues that we are not willing to address. So what can we do? I would propose that we strive towards creating safer environment. We strive towards understanding that we are human beings and we are not God. Lower our expectation of our leaders and commend them and focus on the good that they do, and allow our leaders to be human while they strive to serve the communities. At the same time, I want to weigh in on Honorable Frankie Mayer's recommendation, getting our people to become a people that appreciate education and move towards that end, because sometimes we speak on matters that we don't understand too quick. You know, we see things, our leaders are not able to share things with us. Persons within the political realm, within the church, they can't share certain things with you. As a nation, our politicians cannot share certain things with us because the system requires them to be silent with certain things. They just can't do it. They're code of silence. And in the absence of that, it causes persons to formulate belief and idea that be so far from the truth, and yet still they have to keep quiet. So we have to allow them to be human, allow ourselves. I say them, God bless Moses, I forget to include myself. We have to allow, beckon on our community to allow us to be human, to become educated before you make a speech. Understand that there are consequences sometimes when we propagate and promote certain things that might be more damaging, not just to the individual, but to our families, because we have families that will face those kind of stuff. So in short, I would propose a safe environment, try to create that as a nation, and that is a challenge in and of itself because everybody thinks that they're right, but it is not beyond our ability and our effort to try to create that safer environment, to allow persons to be vulnerable, to allow persons to be able to say, I am stressed. That is a fact that St. Martin is overly stressed. I see persons on a weekly basis overly stressed, and when you're stressed, the executive function of your brain is not functioning. So you find persons, they are being irrational. 8 times the amount of blood flow goes to the irrational part of the brain. And so that means that they are functioning from a part that is not, it cannot draw good and conclusive decisions, but you have those things happening. So we need to recognize that we're human and create that and allow ourselves to become aware of what it takes to lead. I heard the Minister of Justice said, it's giving presence, and I will just extend that presence that influences persons. So I thank you so much for the question, and I hope I have given a short answer because...
Thank you so much, Dr. Nantan. Hearing all of you respond to your questions as opposed to you, the journalist in me is coming alive, and I have questions, but we have a member of the media who unfortunately have to leave. So before he leaves, we're going to give him the chance to pose a question. All right? We're going to call Mr. Emil Lee. Please help him feel welcome.
We do a selfie real quick. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. All too often, when people speak about mental health, we have a tendency in St. Martin to speak about crisis management, which in my opinion is a measure of last resort. When you look at things from a health perspective, when somebody's health gets to the point where you're talking about invasive surgery, it is often the lack of early diagnosis, proper management, those types of measures that would have prevented them from having to get to that point. And in my opinion, mental health is no different. I see examples of violent crime, road rage, discipline problems in school, mothers slapping their children in line at the supermarket. I'll give you a very personal example. My son was in one of the schools, one of the Catholic schools. His teacher, a seasoned teacher, put in her ear pods and said, all you can go yourself and shut down. I went to the principal and I said, look, I don't blame the teacher. To be honest, I blame you. You have obviously not given her the support network or the tools to manage. So, and St. Martin, as I think Fenna mentioned, we have a ton of experience dealing with disasters. We know how to deal with hurricanes. And if your plan for dealing with hurricanes is last-minute crisis management after a hurricane or during a hurricane, then we're lost. That has to come from early preparations, investments in an early time. So I would ask the panelists, I don't know if in particular, I'm personally a little disappointed that the Minister of Education or somebody from the ministry isn't present, but please rate St. Martin's approach to teaching emotional intelligence from childhood. Because when I've asked that question in press conference, the answer from the Minister of Education was, we deal with basically when it reaches above a certain level. And what would your plans be to address deficiencies in creating healthy residents, healthy people, people who are happy and properly adjusted? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Anybody want to go? Yes. Is it on? Is it lit? None seem to be working. Okay, come. I will allow you to use mine, but I'm still in charge.
Mr. Lee, thank you so much for that question. And even though I would not be the one to specifically answer that, I'd like to add to your query because I believe it was either earlier this year or last year, I attended a forum that was hosted by Dr. Julienne Augusti. And as a specialist in this area, her panel of invitees did include the Minister of Education, and there was an extensive discussion about the fact that the cognitive discovery of our children, starting as a very young age, to be able to capture exactly what you're saying, document, manage that, to be able to know and detect where a child is from a very young age is missing within our society. And I'm not saying that the effort is not there, because probably Ms. Fenna can give us some insight about it, but it was a call, that forum was a call that, back in the days we used to have on Back Street, it was the Miss Jeffers, Nurse Jeffers was one who was the clinic, right? So we were trying to understand where that has gone to and the efforts of where that is. And again, Fenna, no offense, you could probably give some insight. Okay. You could probably give us some insight about it. But definitely, I too would like to hear what is happening from that standpoint. And Dr. Augustine is calling for the support to be able to have that reestablished so that we can be able to recognize from baby all the way up to adulthood what is happening in our community.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Emily, I think that your question is one that I for sure can go on for hours speaking of, but simply put, you asked for a rating of social emotional development within education, and I would put that at a 1. I am a child and adolescent psychologist, but I work in the education setting. I work in a school. I was fortunate enough to work at elementary school, and now I work at high school level. And so my name is Shamila Williams. In case I didn't, I don't think I mentioned that. So what I've seen since coming back to St. Maarten and working is that we put such a strong focus on academic performance. We put it on our kids and look at it, we used to have play schools where it was about play, and now our play schools are early stimulations that are ABC, 1, 2, 3, blue, green, red. And what we have done over the years is we have moved away from the most important developmental aspect of that stage of life, which is social interaction. That is how we build, that is how we learn our emotional intelligence through interaction with each other. And we've now shifted it to you sit alone and you read and you write and you draw and you color. And so when that child starts or receiving that pressure from 2, 3 years old, by the time they reach into elementary school, so now we call that Group 1, the focus is so heavily on the academics that we limit play. And play is so important, and I think we've forgotten we are social beings. We are social creatures, and because of that, we need to interact. That is how we develop emotionally. That is how we ensure that we have that emotional intelligence. And because we've shifted now to academics and cognitive ability, and we've kind of putting emotional development on the back burner, we are now seeing a community, a society that is filled with all these different challenges. Who is modeling behavior to our children, how to regulate their emotions? Who is teaching them these things? When a child gets into a conflict with another child, rather than explaining them why the behavior they displayed is unacceptable, rather than asking, well, why did you do it this way, we scold them. We believe that discipline means I need to control, I need to tell you this is how you're not supposed to do it, as opposed to teaching, well, this is how you can do it, understanding the behavior. And this is not taking place in our schools right now. I can speak from experience as a mom who constantly complains about it. 15 minutes a day of social emotional learning is nothing. It is absolutely nothing. So until, as a ministry, as a community, we are ready to have these discussions, and I'm grateful for this platform to do so, or to at least begin having the conversation, until we're really ready to sit with ourselves and recognize the importance of social emotional learning and development, we will continue to face many of the problems that we are having here on the island. So again, to answer your question, the rating, it's low. It's 1. I would say 1.
Did you read it? Okay, good. I want to chip in a bit on that. Teaching emotional intelligence from an educational or institutional perspective is one thing. I think our reality, we need to recognize our reality because it takes more than just the school. You know, I deal with families, primarily with families. And it starts in the home. The parents are the primary caretakers, and a lot of things have to
Mic that's not working? Thank you very much. Yes?
Yeah, you gotta have your mic back.
Go ahead, Honorable.
Thank you.
wanted to say something.
Very good question, Emil. And one of the things, we have to be cognizant of is, and I always say this, if you go to each island or each country, there is different cultures. And I believe your culture protects you because it's based on how the community interacts or reacts to a certain problem, that's what keep that community going. What has happened in St. Maarten over the years, and I'm going to give it to you from a historical perspective, is that cultural thing that we had has deteriorated. I see Nilda Doing in the crowd, and I see Miss Odine Bryson. They can attest to this, and why I say this is because when we were community-based, when family, and that's one of the things we campaign on, once that structural thing of the family, that fabric is deteriorated, what happens is the society that we have today. And it became acceptable because when I was a kid and I do something, we didn't have cellular phones. We didn't have internet, but by the time I got home, Miss Lally, who the Miss Lally Center is named after, by the way, so that kind of tells you exactly who she was, would know exactly what I did, where I did it. I remember a time, I'm going to tell you a story, I was riding my bike and I bet my friends that I could ride my bike from the Pondville through the alley, past back street, through Front Street, without looking, without stopping. And when I got to Front Street, tall boy was coming up Front Street, and he almost hit me on my bike, and he blew the horn, and I flipped him the bird. And I went on about my business. When I circled back around, my mother had a guest house. I saw a tall boy coming from upstairs by the guest house. So no matter what he was doing, it was important enough for him to go in there. And I told my mother it wasn't true, and her remarks were, so a grown man like Carl Arndell has nothing to do but come here and complain you to me. That is what made the society strong, because it takes a village. The accountability, the minister mentioned it in her, we became comfortable in seeing the wrong in our society and not saying anything about the wrong. We became comfortable in saying that. And interestingly enough, we could have, and I'm not trying to prop up the minister, but a lot of the things that she said in her speech, and as leaders, and I mean, I felt like sometimes in her speech she was speaking to me, because as a leader of this community, sometimes I did not address what needed to be addressed because I feared what the backlash would be. And if I could say that I have found myself in that position, imagine the broader spectrum. And that is where we are. And I think to answer Emil's question, how do we start to break the cycle? Is through conferences like this, because we're going to have to break it, we're going to have to stand up and say, we are not accepting the things that we used to accept anymore. And be prepared to deal with the consequences of that.
And just to add to what MP Myers just mentioned, and he was spot on. But again, to answer the question, what it will take to break the cycle, the want, first of all, the real want, and the looking in the mirror to realize, what can I do to break that cycle? What can the churches do? What does placing the responsibility on the school, and we have grown to be so great in the finger pointing. I can tell MP Myers how to draft a law. I should tell Minister Tacklin how to stand up at the borders and protect it. But when it comes to me, I'm not looking at myself. So it's important that we all take up our own responsibility as members in this community and go back to that village system that we all know worked. We know it worked. Great people came out of that village. Let's go back to what we know works. Stop copycatting. Stop taking the international interventions that so-called worked elsewhere. The interventions that are being placed on us to deal with mental health, that is a global issue, not working in the countries that it was developed in. So why force it on me? Our community, we have knowledge. Our elders, they know what worked. Just learn from it. Look in the mirror, start with me, and we're going to all make it.
Thank you so much. It would seem as if the minister's speech was a summary of all our thoughts. But as I want to focus on something she said in her speech. She said leadership for her became real when she decided that she could not stay back and just see things happen, and she took up the responsibility to lead. And I think that's what you will say, generally speaking. It begins with each and every one of us. And we thank all of you for being here, because that is a good indication that we are going back to the village. All right? Let's continue. We're going to see if we can get Ms. Cassandra Richardson, if we can, from the director of the Victim Support Service. We're going to try, because we are having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to pose the question, and then I'm going to pose my mic to this phone to see if we can hear her, okay? Let us bear with us. Ms. Richardson, you serve those who often feel voiceless. What must shift in leadership and law enforcement to ensure victims of domestic violence and sexual trauma are truly protected and not re-traumatized by the system itself?
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. What a spirited debate. Good morning, everybody. I'm in a cold climate, and hearing all of this debate has just warmed me up. So you asked about those that often feel voiceless, and I think that that's important in the way that you ask the questions, because it's not that they are voiceless, but they feel voiceless. And it was prompted me to think about a quote of a author that I so dearly love. She is Indian. She is a real advocate for social justice. Her name is Arundhati Roy. I don't know if anyone is familiar with her, but she has a quote, and it states, "There's really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard." And I think that, so what must shift when you ask about leadership and in law enforcement to protect persons who have been victimized by those who perpetrate, and to protect against the victimization, the re-victimization of a system, and to prevent further victimization of new victims? I think it's about listening. And it's about really intentfully listening. So listening to those who have gone through the domestic violence and the sexual assaults, those that we deem with lived experience. So not coming up with what we think will work, but actually to listen to those who have gone through it with intent. Because there's gold and there's jewels within the story, within the narratives of those women, of those children, of those men even, but the leaders have to get over the apathy. Or I think Minister mentioned the discomfort, and we all feel very uncomfortable about hearing those stories, right? Because maybe it triggers something in us. Maybe it mirrors something for us. And so we tend to shy away from. So I often see within the system that we don't even want to necessarily take on, let's call them, quote unquote, the issues of the victimized. Because for some reason, we may feel that they're weak and that they should show up and that they should be able to handle these things on their own. But that's not the case. So I keep hearing a lot about the concept of the village or the moving again towards a sort of community value instead of an individualistic value that we have taken on because of the Western world, because of European values, and I'm going to say it just like that. So we have come to this conclusion where we have to take care of ourselves, right? But as a system, we know that that doesn't work. So I've also heard many nuggets of, jewels here from different persons on the panel. And if we can show up in that way and not perform, I think that we would be a better community. But we also have to believe what it is that we say and act accordingly. Okay, I think that that's where I'm going to end.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson. Thank you so much. Let me move on to Mr. Is it Lamoth? Mr. Lamoth from the Rise Foundation. You work in the trenches with the, sadly to say, forgotten. What truth do you need leaders to face about what's really happening on our streets and in our homes? And also, what's one thing we can no longer ignore if we are serious about change?
Thank you for your question. Once again, good morning, everyone. Good morning to my co-panelists this morning, and thank you to Dr. Ann and her team for the invite. I think most of what I wanted to say this morning have been said, but again, I think reiterating information is very important as well. One of the things that is no secret to us is that our environment right now, St. Maarten as a whole, we have a high poverty rate, and that has a huge impact on, as we mentioned already, families. Families parents not being able to raise their kids. What we notice a lot is a lot of single-parent households where there's a lack of the father in the household, and there's no one for especially young males to look up to within the household. Kids coming out of school and having to raise themselves because parents have to work 2 and 3 jobs at the end of the day just to provide. So basically when they come home, there's no one there. The little one has to go to school with the key and come home and raise his two younger sisters. These are the things that we have going on within our communities. And also, what Shamila touched on as well is the disconnect that the young people have. We call it with the disconnect of reality, with them not understanding the social cues. If it's dealing with the various challenges, the emotions, the soft skills, the lack of that we have within our society is, I think, affecting our young people in a way where there's no critical thinking no more. They don't think before they make a decision because the lack of the soft skills is no longer there. They spend majority of their time alone in their phones, and their reality is now on social media, and it's not in the present amongst one another. We are social beings. We need to connect. That's how we're able to grow and adapt and change as people. So we are losing that within our communities and our village. Our village is something that, as MP Myers mentioned, I grew up around. If I did something down the road, before I got home, my parents already knew what was going on. Or the neighbor was able to correct you. And then you reach home, and then your parents corrected you again. So that balance that we had within our community, it gave us more of a reinforcement when you grew up and made you want to walk a better path, even if, of course, sometimes you slipped, but it kept that reinforcement on you at the end of the day. And I think something that's lacking that we see within our programs working with youth is the lack in belief in God in today's world. Like, they know there's a God, but the belief in it is like, oh, okay, it's whatever. It's not a primary thing that they would wake up in the morning and pray or do devotions with parents, because again, parents are so busy. They would go to church once in a while, but it's not part of their day-to-day lives. And because of that, we have lack of values continuing to grow each year in each individuals. And I believe for leaders, when I look at leaders, I don't only think of government, because government has their role to play, but each and every one of us as community members, as people who live here, we have our role to play as well. And at the end of the day, we have to stop pointing the fingers and saying, okay, this one, oh, but you're already doing this or you're already doing that, and I have more problems to worry about or other things. Even if you don't have enough time to give an hour or 2 hours, there's things that you can do within your community that can make an impact, that can make a change. So I think for me, it's, based on your question, it's just for us as a people to start realizing the issues at its core, at what we have to face over the years. It's continuing to progress in a non-positive way, and if we don't really stand up and say that we want to see better within our communities, and we want to come together and work together, not this crab in the bucket mentality, pull each other down when you see someone's doing good. That is my, I would say, message to our leaders, that we need to come together and we need to work together, put our heads together. We all have ideas, and if we come together, I believe we can make a change. We can see change within our youth, because they're looking at us. They're looking at government. They're looking at us fighting amongst ourselves, and they're just following in our footsteps. So we have to show the example. So we have our part to play. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Josiah.
Hello. Sorry. I don't want to hog the mic. I apologize, but I have a parliamentary meeting at 10 o'clock,
Okay.
so I have to go. But before I leave, I want to just finish off on this, thanking you for having me here, and moving forward in the future, if there is any more panels like this or anything, you can always reach out to me. I think this is a great initiative. I have to echo what Cassandra said. It's going to have to start with action, and I have to start to do something about it. And the pastor said something that's very interesting. We cannot build a society where within that society, nothing good happens. So we are not heralded for the good, but we only highlight the bad. Any society in which you build like that is a society that is headed for doom. Going back to what I said earlier, I am glad that I'm a product of the society that I grew up in, because those that came before me and were the ones that were in charge, they reached back and they pulled me in spite of my shortcomings. That's the society that we need to build. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to, and we have, an esteemed group of panelists here, professionals, young professionals. And I was just speaking to the former Minister of Justice. We come from different political parties. But I was just telling her that it doesn't mean that because you're not the Minister of Justice anymore, that your knowledge is now cut off. We will continue to reach out, because we're doing this for St. Maarten. We're doing it for a better St. Maarten. So thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, MP, for your time. Thank you so much for, no, we understand. Thank you for thank you so much. Put your hands together for MP as he leaves. Also, the Minister of Justice had to leave as well, and so we thank her for her time. As we move on, I really wanted to ask the MP a question, but because of time, something was said by Pastor, and that was so key, and the MP just touched on it again, that as a community, we cannot be just showcasing and just, putting forward the negativity, because our community will remain negative. And it is sad, because it breaks my heart when I think about the media on St. Maarten, and we have to differentiate between journalism and melee people. I say it like that because it breaks my heart, because everybody that have a platform on social media say they are journalists. And I believe that from a governmental point of view, we have to establish a difference and begin to hold people accountable. But that is my personal belief. But moving along, I would like to just go to Ms. Shelley Gordon, which is a probation officer. And my question to you is, I'm sure you have witnessed the repeat cycle of offenders, maybe daily in your profession. What are we missing in our rehabilitation system that keeps people bound? And also, I want to ask you, how can we stop managing behavior and start addressing the trauma behind it?
Okay, thank you for the invite today. I feel very honoured to be with co-panellists, such a lot of knowledge. Before I get started, I just want to give a bit of a description that I use with clients now and other clients that I used to work with as victims of crime, domestic violence. And I used to work with them and say, this is a jigsaw puzzle that is broken. All these bits are broken. However, we need this, we need this, we need this, and we need this. So for every item that is needed, which is a necessity, this is your piece of jigsaw, okay? Slowly but surely, the jigsaw becomes a new puzzle, okay? A new start in life. I often use that with my clients now, okay? Because every day, J&IS, probation department, deal with offenders, okay? So every offender, there's a victim, okay? Some are repeat offenders, quite a high volume, are repeat offenders. And I'm like, why? What is going on? So you can't just say, oh, well, what happened? What is going on with you? So when we first get introduced to our clients and we make that probation officer client bond, we ask a lot of questions. For example, we've got an inmate coming out of prison. We will go, we will speak to them, and we work with evidence-based methodology, okay, which is proven skills, trainings and things like that to assist our clients. So they're coming out of prison, we've spoken to them at length, they've got issues in this housing or daytime activities or social network. So we identify what the issues are and then work with them on that once they are released. What we see a lot of is trauma. Once your client learns to trust you and you build that bond of probation officer client, they will open up to you and you will say, well, why, what happened to you? What caused that to happen? So we ask about family, relationships, childhood. Did you witness any violence in your childhood? Well, there used to be a lot of shouting and a lot of this and a lot of that. But you know that's not right, huh? Well, yeah, but we just accept it because that's how we grow, yeah? So, but is that good or is that bad? Well, I guess now when I think about it, it's bad, okay? So it's not until perpetrators, offenders, are actually making the link from the broken chain in childhood, the trauma, the abuse that they may have gone through, okay, or things that they've witnessed. You know, a parent being killed, for example, another crime happening, you know, things that they've heard. It's not always seen. Children do not always need to see the violence, they hear it. And what we forget is children that witness, whether it's through visual or hearing, are also victims of crime. Okay, so our clients, we get talking to them, and they're also victims from their childhood, that they've suppressed their trauma because they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. So their way of dealing with suppressed trauma is they hide it and they then act out. Okay, but no one is asking, why are you acting out? What happened to you? Because until you address what has actually happened in their life, they are not going to be able to move on. We as probation officers go above and beyond to rehabilitate. Rehabilitate is not an option, it's an essential tool for our society, okay? We do not judge, we're here to support, guide, and hopefully rehabilitate to reduce recidivism, okay? But it's not just, oh, you're a person. There's more layers to that person, yeah? Coming out of being incarcerated for 10 years, stable home, employment, okay? Family support network, because everybody needs a support network, whether it's professional, okay, whether it's family, whether it's church, whether it's even the community that you're living. We all have a role to play, okay? And we see it often. Our offenders feel shame. They isolate themselves. You really have to encourage them after being detained for so many years to remotivate, relight them, educate them that society has changed. It's not what it was when you were locked up. And that is a big thing. And I honestly believe we will always go above and beyond for our clients, but we as a nation, we as Country St. Maarten need to do better. You know, there's a lack of accessible interventions for them. You know, if you've got a client that has actually got underlying mental health issues that hasn't been detected, either they haven't got SZV, so they can't get the help they need because they're not medically insured. They may need a mentor out in the community to guide them on how life is now in your district. It may be that they've had underlying trauma and it's only since they've come back into society that you're now seeing issues. Something's not right. So I always say with me, I always go digging with a big shovel. Because if I see something is not right, I will get them to trust me enough to open up. Because there's always a solution. I will always focus on a solution in a way of helping someone that's made a mistake, okay? And, you know, there's a lot of serious crimes. But again, victim needs support, but so does the perpetrator. And we as a community, businesses, employers, okay, we need to look at apprenticeships, internships to help rehabilitate the offenders when they're also coming out. We spend a lot of time at the prison doing workshops, and I know the prison staff also have a lot of input with their clients, you know, with the inmates. But again, once they reach outside, they may have had, even whilst they're incarcerated, family trauma, loss of a grandma or a father. And, you know, we have clients that haven't had, and it's been mentioned already, a fatherly figure. They've had no male role model to look up to or to educate them and steer them on the right path. And because they haven't had that, that's where they've lost track and they've took a negative path rather than a positive path. We all really need to work together, whether it's probation officers, whether it's church, whether it's the ministries, former ministers, because I know former Minister Richardson was very proactive in all arenas. School, okay, very important. We all have a role to play. And we all need to support each other. even people within our community with underlying drug addictions, okay? Alcohol, we are seeing a big increase in substance abuse and alcohol misuse. And I have to take my hat off a million times to Turning Point, because they have so many clients come from us. That itself is overwhelming, because but again, we have to work as a community to help the less fortunate that have fallen to the side out of the system. If not, they're just going to keep revolving door, commit crime, arrested, because that's the only life they know. So we need to empower our offenders when they come out, to get them more stable and to help them readjust back into community. We can do all the training, and we can give them therapy and counselling sessions, empowerment, but it takes a community, church, community, businesses, as I've already mentioned. We all have a role to play, because it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female offender, you're someone's child, okay? And we forget that. They are someone's child, okay? And, you know, we forget some of our offenders that we come across have been institutionalised in foster care. They've had no role model as mother or father to give them that extra support, but they are still someone's child. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shelley. Thank you very much.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add to that just a little bit, if you don't mind. As my mic is available. I'm looking within the room, and I know that we've indicated that a lot of persons are at work, and we're hoping that they're viewing. But one of the things that we have to recognize is these types of panel discussions are fantastic. We must keep them going, but we have to find a way for the information to reach the people who really needs to hear it. Oftentimes we have these, and the same faces are there with the best intentions, but the real persons who need to be able to receive this information is not there. And oftentimes too, financing is an issue, because you have a lot of persons that would put that aspect, am I going to get paid, in front of being able to recognize how building the community we speak of should be the forefront, and not so much the resources being received. So that is one of the challenges that we have. But what I really would like is that as we progress forward and we commit ourselves to being able to build this community we know is needed, let's also focus on how we can reach the people who really need to receive the information. Because one thing that we always say is justice is the last end of the spectrum. And too often, justice is expected to solve the problem. The problem is rooted way before they ever arrive to justice. So please, let's keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you so much, former Minister Richardson. I really believe that getting the right person to get the right information is key. Because really and truly, it does no good if the information doesn't get to who needs to get it. But that is something that we are struggling with in our culture. At our ministry, we have trauma healing sessions, 12-week course we do, and it is free of charge. And there's nothing participants have to do. Every Thursday night, once the concert course is running, Reverend, I give them dinner. I have childcare for those who have children. It runs from 7:30, well, from 7, we have dinner for half an hour. Sessions start at 7:30 and go until 9. They get graduated afterwards with a certificate of completion, and we are still seeing people not showing up. And I think that is something that we need to address. It's wonderful to have these platforms and these forums, but we need to get people to understand that, and I believe from my experience, what people have told me, that receiving help is not a sign of weakness. All right? So let's move on. We have spoken a lot about the child, the family, and also the village. And I really want to bring the ambassador of the It Takes a Village on board. That is Dr. Webster, who ran that platform. She's a child and adolescent psychologist. And my question to you, Dr. Webster, is trauma in children often begins in the home or classroom. What do educators and parents need to understand about childhood trauma to prevent it from repeating across generations?
Okay. Good morning once again. So I think a lot has been said this morning that can answer that question. And, but I'm sitting here and I'm listening to everyone speak, and I agree with all that is being said. And one of the thoughts that kept coming up or coming forward to me is, how do I break a cycle if I don't see myself in that cycle? So I deal with children who experience trauma, and I listen to the examples of trauma given here today. And I think as a community, it's an unintentional mistake that we often make when we speak of trauma, because we tend to focus solely on the big events, right? We think violence, we think whether that's domestic or you were the victim, you witnessed some form of violence. We think loss, we think disaster. But I'm going to ask a question, and I want all of you to really sit with yourself and just maybe nod, smile, raise your hand. How many of us have, while growing up or even been guilty of it as parents, had moments where, as a child, maybe you were crying and you were told, you better stop crying before I give you something to cry for? Because I'm guilty. I'm guilty of saying this to my children. I'm guilty because I've also experienced it as a child. That is a cycle of trauma. We have, for many generations, we've been taught that when it comes to parenting, when it comes to us as adults providing for children, our responsibility is food, shelter, safety. And when we talk safety, we typically talk physical safety, and we forget emotional safety. We don't focus on how our children are feeling unless we're talking about illness. We don't focus on the emotions of our children. But how do I focus on the emotion of my child when I don't know how to focus on my own emotions? And so if we truly want to address breaking cycles of trauma, we have to first go through a very, very uncomfortable process of identifying our own trauma, identifying our own responses to trauma. When I look at our classrooms, we have, and I said it earlier in answering the question of Mr. Emily, in our schools and education, we are so focused on academics. And I don't want you guys to take from this that I am anti-academics, right? Because I'm pro it, right? Like, let's learn. But also, let's learn how to respond to things that trigger us. Let's learn how to regulate our emotions as well. So I look in our classrooms, both elementary school and high school, and what I often see is a teacher comes into a class, and this is a whole different topic, and I'm not going to go into it, but our classrooms are way too filled with students to teacher ratio. It's too wide. So the teacher comes in with their own trauma, with their own baggage, with their own life happening, right? And then they're expected to teach, but while teaching, deal with 27 different personalities who is also experiencing all these different things. So frustration is high. And thank God for the children who sit quietly, say nothing, even if they do nothing, because they're no longer a hindrance to me as a teacher in my process of teaching. But the child who misbehaves, the child who talks out of turn, the child who acts out, that's the child I give attention to. And just like the Reverend said, we give negative attention, right? So I'm looking at the negative. And how do I respond to that? Typically, our response is one of, but what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And we walk out into the community and we see people acting outside of what we deem normal behavior. And we ask, but what's wrong with he? What's wrong with she? But we're never truly asking it to understand or empathize. We just want to know, but what's going on with this person, right? And so with our children, we see that. And we don't ask, well, I wonder what Johnny experienced this morning that made him feel the way he's feeling today. Or even, let's start with, Johnny, how are you feeling? This is what I'm seeing. We don't connect with our children. We try to correct our children. And so if we want to truly break these cycles, whether it's cycles of trauma, regardless of what type of trauma it is, whether it's cycles of silence, and I can use an example as to why we see, and I really commend the Reverend, right? The Reverend's answer on why we don't hear people come out. Again, I ask you guys, think about it. How many of us grew up in homes where we were told, what happened in this house stays in this house? These are all the cycles of trauma. So we are seeing in our community one big cycle that keeps repeating itself, but within that cycle, there are points of mini cycles occurring. And so we have to identify what is the point of least resistance to try to infiltrate and break that cycle. But truly it starts with us recognizing for ourselves what are the traumatic experiences that I may have experienced, whether it's as a child that I've taken into adulthood, because oftentimes what we see happen too is we go through a traumatic experience, we talk to someone we trust, and that talking, we think that talking alone is enough, right? Because I talk and I feel lightened. Yes, that is a healthy start, but it's just a start. And so because we think, well, I don't feel these feelings anymore, I've healed, until I'm confronted with a similar situation or something triggers a thought or a feeling that brings me back to that experience, then I realize, but wait, I didn't actually deal with it. And so we are going through this as adults, but children are also going through it as well. And so if I don't know how to deal with the things that frustrate me, someone says something, I act out a character, this is how I behave, whether I get aggressive, whether I withdraw, I am modeling a behavior for the children around me in my role as a teacher, in my role as an educator, in my role as a leader as well. If we look at how our leaders are running the country, and I know they're doing their best, but I think sometimes they have to remember, and it was said, the young people are watching. And when I hear young people say, yeah, but look how they just speak, and then I'm supposed to, and then you expect me to do differently, we are stuck in our own traumatic cycles. And until we are ready to be and get uncomfortable with ourselves, in identifying, recognizing what these cycles are and how we respond to them, we won't be able to do better for our children and the generations to come. So if we want to truly break cycles, yes, we need to work together. Yes, we need to come together as a community. But I implore everyone, sit in front of a mirror and get real. Get vulnerable with yourself, because that's where true breaking of a cycle begins. Thank you.
Wow. We're going to go quickly, because time is catching on us, to Tiana Knight. She's a substance abuse counselor at Turning Point. Tiana, addiction isn't just on the street. It's in our workplaces, homes, and even pulpits. How do we break the cycle of denial and begin addressing the hidden pain behind substance abuse in St. Maarten?
Good morning again, everyone. It's a pleasure to be a part of such an important conversation. My fellow panelists, you've done an excellent job at responding to those questions. I believe most of the important points were already mentioned at some point, but it's true that addiction is everywhere. It's hiding behind our smiles, our reputations, our responsibilities. And then, of course, in a society so small like St. Martin, our people, they learn how to hide pain well. So they're suffering in silence. Of course, maybe things like Hurricane Irma, the pandemic, life has felt heavy ever since. We look at the state of the world worldwide, there's a lot going on. And so, of course, people have to show up as a strong front. You know, you want to function, you're trying to survive, feed your families, and that pressure leaves very little room for growth and healing sometimes. And so when we don't make time to deal with our pain, it finds ways to escape, whether that's through anger, and of course, substance use and abuse. But of course, addiction is not just about drugs. It's about the pain behind the drugs, the trauma, the abandonment. Do they have a safe space to deal with whatever they're dealing with? And then of course, like some of them mentioned, we have to really take a look at ourselves sometimes, our society. Do we even create a safe space for people to be vulnerable, to seek help? Because again, lack of seeking help or lack of early intervention would of course worsen the outcome. Because if I only wait until I have it up to here to go and get help, it's already too late. We were very reactive when we should be proactive and protective of our society. But that also means that if someone needs help or they admit, hey, I'm not feeling too well, how do we respond to them? Do we say they're crazy or something is wrong with you, or do we offer them empathy or kindness? Because we say we want a healthier St. Martin, but to have a healthier St. Martin, we need to create a kinder St. Martin. We need to ensure that people feel safe to even address whatever trauma before it becomes a problem for the community, a problem for our families. So again, it starts with looking at yourself, taking accountability for your role. Ask yourself, what am I doing to help or hurt the situation? Each and every one of us can be a safe space for somebody. Because of course we know, say for instance, our mental health institutions or turning points, everyone is facing capacity issues. But we don't take responsibility as members of the community. Each one of us is part of that same capacity. You can be a safe space for someone. Like they mentioned, our churches, our pastors, our community leaders. We can be there. You can support your neighbor. Find out how are you doing. When we see people in our community struggling, we have this culture where we talk about them, but we don't talk to them. We speak to them and we use whatever they're going through as a hot topic for the week. And then in reality, in reality, it actually becomes a part of their identity. So it's because you're careful about your reputation. Hey, I don't want to seek help because if they think I'm crazy, what if I want to get a job? That person would have already known what I went through because of gossip. We don't meet them with empathy. We gossip and we bring them down. We make that weakness or whatever trauma their identity, when they're not their trauma, they're not their diagnosis, they're not their addiction. They're just people. As my fellow panelists mentioned, these are people's babies. That's somebody's grandchild. And we often don't even take it personally until it reaches your family or your doorstep. But that's too late. Because what if it was your niece or nephew? We laugh and we point fingers and we make it that. They can never come out of that stigma. And of course, stigma leads to rejection, okay? And of course, that rejection feeds into the cycle. So if I wait until it's too late to get help, maybe by then I've already damaged my reputation. I've already lost my job. My family now are victims of my own shortcomings. So that addiction, it doesn't even happen in isolation. It affects the family members, the children. It affects our co-workers. Even in our jobs, what are you doing to ensure that you're showing up for your colleagues? Even as if you're a manager, do you attack your colleagues for maybe not being their best selves today, or check in? What's wrong? What happened? Why are you behaving this way? How can I help? Instead of just demonizing vulnerability or just a human experience. Because I think we look at addiction as moral failure, when in reality, it's just a human response to pain. Everyone doesn't have the tools to cope with whatever they're going through. As was mentioned, we don't know their story. We don't know what's going on now. And so ask them, hey, how can I help? How can I offer you help? Instead of making them feel as though there's no safe space. And so, of course, it starts with us. If we look at ourselves and admit, hey, maybe I'm not doing this the way I'm supposed to, I'm not being the best parent, I'm not being the best co-worker, it starts there. Okay? Thank you.
Wow. We're going to continue for time's sake. I know the 2 hours was not enough, but this discussion has started something, it stir up something. Meredith Concepcion, the last panelist, she functioned under the Department of Judicial and Institutional Services. She's a former family guardianship coordinator, and presently she's the foster care coordinator at GYS. I can see that? GIS, yeah. I don't have my glasses on. Thank you. From your and the glasses is right here on the table. Yeah. We're not gonna go there. From your experience working in the foster care system, Meredith, what patterns or gaps do you see that cause children to move from one cycle of instability to another? And how can we hold parents more accountable while still supporting the healing and reunification?
Thank you for that question. I guess I'm the last. And most of the time when you're last, everything is what was already said. So, I was looking at some pointers I jotted down. And one of the things that stood out is actually, someone mentioned it, early childhood education, which is very dear to my heart, and it's very important. I remember when coming to St. Maarten, I was asked by one of the MPs back then, I think it was MP Westcott, that if I can help with the setting up of the early childhood education on St. Maarten. So I did that, and before doing that, I told her that the first thing I need to do is to get all the caregivers certified, because all of them was working in the daycare centers and they with our foundation of this society, and they were not certified. So I went ahead and I make sure that they were all certified. And secondly, what we did, we went we did workshop for the parents, because the parents also need to know what is going on. And then we make sure that every month we follow up to make sure that whatever we taught them, it was, they follow through with that. After leaving that, my thing is basically what I am seeing, and I'm listening to all of this, it's more the follow-up and continuation of things. Because you would hear a lot of information given here. How do we follow up? How do we continue with this? There is where the rubber hits the how you said? The road, because most of the time there is no follow-up on these things. So right now, as we look back, someone is saying that there is issues again because there's no follow-up. Going to the foster care, all that was said here this morning, that's the reason why a lot of the children end up in foster care. And some of the pattern leading to the cycle of instability, I dug it up. I could mention a whole lot, but I just want to mention two because of lack of time as well. Parents, pattern that we see actually on a day-to-day is parents struggling with substance abuse, mental health challenges, domestic violence, poverty, and lack of parental skills. We also have parents that genuinely choose not to engage even when resources and support are available. Sometimes what looks like not caring can be the result of untreated trauma or mental illness, chronic stress or poverty, intergenerational neglect, and distrust of the system. We have a lot of them that distrust the system. Oh, you're not going to do anything for me anyway, so, why worry? So all this can have a strong impact on our children. And children often internalize this pattern as I am unworthy of love. One of the deepest wounds in foster care is that when children come to you and say, My mother don't love me, my father don't love me. So together, I am stressing on together, we need to find ways to deal with these root causes, not just the surface, but like my colleague here said, we need to really dig deeper to be able to find out what is causing all this. There's a few gaps that I would like to mention. Again, there's a lot, but because of lack of time, I would mention 3. Most child welfare funding is spent after removal and not preventing family breakdown or supporting reunified families or aftercare. So prevention is a key. And most of the time, we don't think about prevention. If something happens, everybody wants to jump on it and try to fix it. But we need to invest in prevention. This results in children not receiving timely trauma-informed care, mental health services, or education support. This can manifest in behavioral issues that complicate reunification or placement stability. These children ends up in foster care. Another gap is that the system focuses more on monitoring compliance than on proactive healing and skill building for the child. So these children also most of the time ends up in foster care. Fragmented interagencies collaboration. Lack of coordination among child welfare, mental health, schools, community service. Everybody's working on their own island. Family receive mixed messages. At times, children progress is inconsistent, and the cycle of instability continue. So if we are working together, I think we would be able to help the child better than everybody's working with the same child, but nobody knows what nobody is doing with that child. So we need to work more together when it comes to that. There's often no holistic family-centered approach, no shared data system, missed opportunities for integrated care planning. Communication depends on individual workers and not a structure. We are missing that. Result is that this in the children falls through the crack, especially during the transitional period or aging out of foster care. And stable families create stable futures. Policies must involve from managing crisis to building resilience. Children break free from cycles of instability when stabilize their environment and address root causes in the family system, while holding parents accountable in a way that is structured, measurable, and supportive rather than to punish them. So basically, foster care should be the last resort if we together, and I'm stressing on together, because it needs to be done by all of us, can help break that cycle in family. Because it takes a village to raise a child. I thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for your input. I think the saying is true, with no offense to anybody else. We save the best for last. But I wanna thank each and every one of you. Our time is almost exhausted. I say almost because there are something we want to do before we close. We also want to thank TV15. They are streaming live, and also on the Government of St. Martin's page on the social platform. So we thank you watching via these mediums. To all our panelists, those that had to leave earlier, and those of you who are there, thank you so much, thank you so much, thank you so much. Those, Cassandra online, your patience with our technical difficulties, thank you for that, thank you for that. But before we leave, I want to say this. I really hope and pray that each and every one of us here on the panel and those of us in the audience think about doing this again, because like all of us have said, it is necessary, it is needed, and I wish we could have delved more. I was just telling Dr. Ann that I had to exercise so much self-control not to just really, dig into some discussions that were being had because we had to really manage time. But before we go, I want to just get 5 minutes, no, not even 5 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm giving two persons 3 minutes to just, on an advice base, based on the view of today, we have two international leaders here with us at that part of Dr. Ann's conference, which begins tonight. And I'm going to ask a question to Dr. Stacy from the United States. I met her first in England. I met her in England, a wonderful woman. And so from a global faith perspective, what happens when the church becomes silent on matters of abuse, mental health, and broken systems? Dr. Stacy. Wanna come?
Want me to stand up? Well, thank you, Dr. Ann. Thank you all, the panelists. I'm super excited to be here in St. Martin, the beautiful St. Martin. It's absolutely awesome. I've had a wonderful time here. I arrived yesterday in my team, but I want to answer that. I actually wrote down some topics, and as you were speaking, but before I do that, I want to share my experience since I've been here, not that many hours, but when I got here at 5:30, I believe, I know you said 3 minutes, I'm going to be obedient. But anyway, when I got here, we went to eat after we did the radio thing. And as we were walking, I saw someone get hit by a car on his motorcycle, and the young boy just jumped up and went on like nothing ever happened, and this lady's car is totally totaled. And the community, a couple of people, maybe two, went to help. And I was like, what? This guy could have been killed. Like, I couldn't even believe that he was walking. The whole bumper was off the car. But anyway, I'm saying all of that to say, a lot of times we're not educated in what to do. And this young man, it really baffled me that the community didn't run to assist. And I believe a lot of this has to do with educating. Even while in the vehicle, I saw the taxi was driving us, and then here comes another motorcycle, like beside the taxi, like in the little lane. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what are you doing? And so he's swerving, and I'm like, this man is it's a death wish. What are we doing? And so when I heard all of you speaking over and over again, the message to me would be, stay encouraged, because your community, you have a lot on you. You have a lot on you, but don't be shameful in what you're doing. So while I was there eating, I'm going to answer your question, I promise. While I was there eating, there were 4 gentlemen outside, two gentlemen and a young lady, as Dr. Ann was taking me. So I'm a soul winner. And I'm a soul winner technician. And so I believe in depopulating hell and populating heaven. And so when I see these people sitting there and they're using their vapes and they're clean and they're handsome little young men and 2 pretty little girls and they're, teenagers, preteens, I begin to go over. So he begins to talk to me and I'm like, son, I have a child your age. I'm 54 years old. And he said, but I want you. I said, I know you need me. And so I began to minister to him and minister to the young lady. I'm just giving you a message of hope, okay? And I began to minister to the 4. I gave them my Facebook information. Don't you know they all joined me the next day? I woke up this morning with the kids on my Facebook. So even though you may think things are tough, the kids are responsive and they're ready. They're ripe. And they're ready to receive. They just needed someone to talk to. And when I tell you they put their vapes down and they listen, I'm not talking about children that didn't have anything. It was obvious they were well cared for. But they put down their vapes and they listened to me, because children understand a counterfeit. And I said, baby, let me explain something to you. I'm the real. Because in the USA, In order to detect the counterfeit, when it comes to money, they teach them to learn about the real. I said, so give the people a chance. Give them an opportunity before you're quick to shun them. And so I just wanted to encourage you with that. To answer your question, is shame. In the church, we don't want to deal with it because we've been taught that it's shameful. You need help. You need mental help, and you know it, and your family knows it, and everyone knows you need mental health. And everybody is talking about it, like you said, behind the scenes. They know that your father is an addict, your mother is a alcoholic. They know that your mother and father are verbally abusive to you. They know that. But we're talking about it and not being about it. So I want to encourage the people to each one reach one. And all it took was for me to go up to these children. Then I began to share with them resources. Hey, there's a church called Christ Transform Global Ministries. And I said, Dr. Ann, come over here. And I began to share with her about share with them, hey, she's the real deal. And then they begin to question, now, where are you? Where are you? See, it's just about meeting the kids where they are. The Bible talks about it all the time. It is our responsibility to meet the people where they are. In the United States, one more minute, please. In the United States, we have something where we include every job. At my workplace, if you have insurance, therapy is given. There's a therapist on site. I am a commercial property assessor by trade, okay? And so I go into properties, and automatically when I walked in here, my mind got to thinking about it. But we go into these places and we assess. Well, that's what we have to do. We have to assess where this child is. That's where the gift of discernment kicks in, and each one begin to reach one. And so we have these things. So at school, we have therapists that are on site. The teachers are required to take classes on educating them about the different resources that our school offers. So not only our school, but our jurisdiction. So every teacher knows the resources that are available. So if your child is suffering, it's because you did not give them the resources that were needed. It is our responsibility as a people, not as an office, but as a people, to assist and provide a service from God to mankind. That's what I believe. And so I believe that if we open up our hearts and we pour out into each person the measure that we have, each one can reach one.
Thank you so much, Apostle Dr. Stacy. And I give her 3 minutes. Anybody else counting how much it took? Grace. I want to also ask Dr. Natalie from Zimbabwe, is it right? Yes. My Zimbabwean sister. To just, across cultures, silence is often mistaken for strength. How can nations like St. Martin build a culture of transparency and healing without shame, like Dr. Stacy mentioned, but especially in leadership cycles?
Thank you so much, sir. Glory to Jesus. That had to come out. Well, I greet you all in the name of Jesus. I'm also clergy, and I want to thank Dr. Ann for this wonderful and beautiful opportunity and salute her obedience to the Holy Spirit. I believe this is the Holy Spirit who has orchestrated this. And I want to salute this panel. Whew. Yes, a round of applause for them, please. I was enlightened. I felt, okay, maybe they don't do this in St. Martin. In Africa, we're allowed. I want to say hallelujah. Oh, yes, amen. But I had to really collect myself. Not only am I clergy, I'm also a systemic counselor. So in systemic counseling, we dig deep. We go back to the roots. As we are counseling you, we draw your genogram. We're trying to understand which bracket do you fall in. Are you a firstborn dynamic issue? Are you a lastborn? How was your family? Was it a polygamous family? And so forth, so that we get an understanding when we're speaking with you. So, just a little background. I'm going to try to be very disciplined, and I thank God I was not given time, but I'll give myself maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Grace. So just a little background. I am a survivor of rape at 13. I'm also a survivor of drug and substance abuse. I did everything from cocaine, you name it. So when I look at a person, I really understand firsthand what it means to be broken and what it means to have a silenced voice, not only by choice, but being forced by society to not speak up, perhaps owing to cultural norms, shame, and you name it. But I really thank the Holy Spirit. He allowed me to go through all these trainings and so forth. And having done that, I've become very vocal about even pain and things like that. So I just prepared something so that, pastors, we kind of end up preaching. So I wanted to discipline myself and just read. I prepared this in the morning. So based from my observations here with prison inmates, again, by God's grace, I went with Dr. Ann. She took me around. She took me to Miss Laylee's center. It was amazing. By God's grace, I managed to do one-on-one sessions with each inmate, as well as the social workers and a few prison guards. It was amazing. So based from my interactions with those prison inmates, and based from my interaction with other prisoners, even in Africa, and leaders in Africa, well-decorated leaders, who by God's grace I'm also mentoring, even in government, politicians, in government, in ministry, there is a pattern, and I'm seeing a trauma, a generational trauma, a cycle in most of them that is hidden through silence, out of fear of stigma, because we judge each other. We don't care. When we are asking you, how are you, it's just passive. We don't really care. It's a greeting. And when you really tell us your issues, we are the first to announce and amplify. So that stigma, the cultural norms and ignorance as well, some of it simply just takes somebody sitting there and listen to these great minds to have their minds sharpened. But anyway, and also the church, where I'm blessed to be a leader, the church, the body of Christ. The church is often a place of refuge. But now, I'm seeing a pattern. It has now become, I'm sorry to say, it has now become a place of misdiagnosed trauma, misunderstood trauma. And it's doing more harm than good. We're over-spiritualizing issues. Somebody brings their issues, and we're pastors. We are ready to preach to them, meaning well. We are ready to encourage them, meaning well. But we're not ready to really just sit and listen for them to vent. Sometimes what we need, when our children, our daughters come, we just need to listen. They're not even looking for advice most of the times. The solution lies in them. If you allow them to vent, their minds are going to be sober, and then they're going to start seeing things clearly and make a proper decision. In counseling, we don't give advice. That's actually rule number 1, never give advice. We're just there to highlight to somebody issues, suggest maybe, but to highlight and help them to make informed decisions. So yes, the church has often been a place of refuge, but sadly a place where pain is misdiagnosed, trauma misunderstood and over-spiritualized, and wounds are thriving in silence. So to truly break the cycles of trauma, I respectfully submit 2 recommendations. The first recommendation, pastoral workshops and training. I strongly recommend workshops, especially for pastors and faith leaders, to help them to stop over-spiritualizing issues that require clinical and therapeutic support. Yes, prayer is powerful, but prayer with therapy is life-transforming. The second submission is chaplaincy, and if religion is an issue, I suggest social workers for services, social workers for government and private institutions to support leaders and those that are led in any institution emotionally and spiritually. This will avoid burnouts, stress, depression, unnecessary conflicts in institutions, in churches and families and government. And a happy workforce delivers effectively and ultimately makes a happier nation. These social workers can help with community cohesion and stand in the gap between the citizens and the government, fostering trust and a holistic care for our people. And also, as we address the root causes of trauma and brokenness and encouraging people to open up and break the silence as well as the cycle, it's vital to recognize that true transformation must touch every sphere of society. Number 1, family. I work with the mountains, 7 mountains of influence. Quickly, the family. The family, this is where identity and values are first formed. Healing must begin at home. Healing must begin with self. We must confront cycles of abuse and dysfunction within families through initiatives like radio and TV programs, door-to-door social work, outreach, and community support systems. Number 2, religion. The church and faith-based organizations play a key role in restoring dignity, hope, and healing. From Sunday school to conferences, the church must be equipped to address trauma, provide counsel, and disciple communities holistically. Number 3, the mountain of education. What our children learn shapes their worldview. We need trauma-informed, healing-centered learning environments, just as Shamila was speaking about. Equipping educators at all levels with tools to identify and to respond to trauma in age-appropriate ways is actually very essential. Workshops and continuous development can make school places of safety and transformation. So I would love to have, even through you and your grace and anointing, woman of God, where you gather all these mountains of influence, where you are even gathering education leaders. And they sit there, the Minister of Education and other, ECD, different levels, and teachers are filled in this place, and they're discussing all these things. And I know you can do it. You're anointed for it, woman of God. So education, equipping educators at all levels with tools to identify and respond to trauma in age-appropriate ways is essential. Workshops and continuous development can make school places of safety and transformation. Number 4, the government. Policies must be created and enforced to protect the vulnerable and support long-term healing. Prisons and rehabilitation centers, I would also suggest they prioritize restoration over punishment. And I'm happy to also have heard our former Minister of Justice saying, yeah, it's not just punishment. These are other people's children. It's more of a rehabilitation. But I don't know if it's like this here, but in Africa, our prisons tend to be punishment arenas. If you're going there, know that you are in for it. Even the community will judge you. And we are actually trying to also raise awareness in that regard. So I would also really encourage that you continue. Just continue. Through the probation, you can continue. And I applaud you for that. Government leaders must also reflect personally on their role in ending trauma and champion chaplaincy and mental health support services across departments. Media, are you here? I heard the cry of leaders, and I know you're doing a great job, and I salute you who have come here to spread positivity and positive news. Media can either break silence or reinforce stigma. It should be a powerful voice for awareness, healing, and change. Programming focused on restoration should be amplified and rebroadcast frequently. I hope this would be rebroadcasted and rebroadcasted. And influencers and content creators should also be engaged and educated to promote healthy, healing-centered narratives. I also pray for a day we have media and social influencers filled in this room and listen to panelists. Number 6 out of 7, arts and entertainment. This sector can awaken us to societal issues or numb us to them. Artists are often deeply impacted by emotional and mental health challenges. And it's also very important that we start with them because they are the role models of our children. And they are also, most of them are our role models. Their toxicity, we consume even their toxicity subconsciously. So artists are often deeply impacted by emotional and mental health challenges, yet they carry immense cultural influence. Let us engage this mountain intentionally to create content that sparks conversation, reflection, and healing, especially for the younger generation who follow their lead. And lastly, business and economy. I encourage financial independence and opportunity, for they are crucial for breaking cycles of abuse and dependency. When people, especially women and youth, are economically empowered also, let's not forget the boy child, they gain the confidence and capacity to resist and rise above abusive systems. I don't know if it's also here in Africa. I don't mean to badmouth Africa. We've got a lot of amazing things, and I invite you to Africa. But one of the things that we're struggling with is it's a cultural norm where women were subdued for a long time, and the men don't really see the value of a woman, such that when a woman wants to prove, wants to rise, most of the times she has to use her back to climb. I don't know if that made sense. So you find those power dynamics. So that's why there are a lot of initiatives of women empowerment. So when a woman is financially emancipated and well-educated, she knows she is equipped. Her mind is opened. She doesn't need to lie on her back. She doesn't have to go through a bedroom interview to prove her worth. So if you also perhaps might have this thing hidden under the carpet in St. Martin, I would also encourage women empowerment initiators with your banks, things like mortgages, things that just workshops that empower the women. So also partnerships with business sector can fund and sustain healing initiatives. If we are to truly break the cycle, I would suggest we also engage all these spheres. Trauma is not just a personal matter. It is a societal wound. And I would highly recommend restoration to be holistic. Spirit, soul, and body. I love you all, and God bless you.
That was a great teaching in just a few minutes. So it's a beginning of it's a movement. You know, I tell people all the time that all what I'm doing with the vision that God gave me is a movement to change and heal this nation. And I always thank those that stand with me, you know, and I want to thank my team that helped me, my staff of A&A Accounting, and my support system. You know, I have a great support system. You know, it's not Dr. Ann by herself, because then I wouldn't be able to stand. So I thank all those that help. My PR at Monique that does wonderful job behind the scene. Prophet Spoon, also I greet you on behalf of Prophet Spoon, and Pastor Ray from Christ Transform Global Ministry, and also our global network that assists us. But before we close, I will want to give Cassandra Richardson, she would like to close with a short remark. Cassandra, are you there? Go ahead and speak.
Yes, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. The last
Dr. Natalie.
Woman that's Dr. Natalie. You just threw everything out that I just wanted to say. The importance, right? So I do understand and I do recognize that even persons that perpetrate, they are also victims. Yes? And they also need restoration. And I'd also like to say that there's also a line between the restoration and the protection of victims. And I'd like us as a community to also recognize that, because what Dr. Natalie mentioned about victims being silent or silenced, even when they speak about their circumstance, sort of get overshadowed, because perpetrators also need the support, which I am not denying or recognizing. However, when we take the light off of the victims that also need the protection as well as the access to support, because we're also talking, I think that I was invited to speak about domestic violence. As it's November, as we're doing the awareness on domestic violence and gender-based violence, there is an acute situation that still happens even in modern societies that also like to say that women are equal. We're not. I'm still trying to say that there is still an injustice and an inequality in how we perceive women. Men get abused too, yes. And there are systems that are actively oppressing, that they are willfully silencing the voices that women experience in our community. The issue with the access even to banking, as simple as that, as I'm seeing a lot with families that are trying to protect themselves against perpetrators or persons that perpetrate. And I'd like the men on the panel to also know and recognize that the biggest predator, let's say, of a woman is usually her husband or the person that she's involved with. And so because the issue of domestic violence is so intimate, and because it's so superfluous, so it's not just in the home, but it's also in the community. It's also within how she's able to access supports. We have to be very, very intentional about how we're seeing and understanding this problem. That also ultimately affects the children that live, that may have been abused, that may witness, that may hear the abuse in the home as well. So from a systemic way of approaching it, we have to understand it at that level. It's not just an individual abuse that happens towards a person. It happens within a system of control. It happens within a value system of control. I'm not going to go and talk about patriarchy right now or those types of systems that are actively working, but we also need to understand it in that way. And then I wanted to just give also to Ms. Knight and Ms. Shamila the point that they brought up. Ms. Knight, kindness. If we can, in our community, I think that that's so important. I know that we shy away from kindness because we think that it's weak, or that we think that we're giving a person more reverence. But kindness is so important and so basic. It's what actually gets us in touch with our humanity. Yes. That's actually being eroded when we look the world over right now. I don't know if anybody's interested in international politics or have that lens right now, but that part is being really eroded throughout communities. Yes. To Ms. Shamila, the point on sitting in the mirror and coming to terms with our own traumas, also so important. Even as professionals that work in mental health or mental wellness, this is a constant thing that we have to do. Because if we don't do it, we actually re-traumatize victims, whether they're perpetrators or whether they're victims. Then, I'm sorry, but Ms. Arnell left, yes. Ms. Fenna Arnell. So within the National Plan for the Mental Health, I know that there is one, and that her ministry and her department is actively working on one. And I'd also like to add that perhaps as we're talking about all of these social problems, all of these social issues, that these aren't just abstract thoughts, but perhaps there should be another national plan being developed that actually looks at all of the social issues so that we can combat it as a community. And I'm not even talking about professionals or institutions, but even people that live at home. So grandmothers, aunties, those people are also part of it. It's also part of what we've been hearing more and more, trying to lean towards a community-based approach, which is, you know, sort of like a westernized way of just saying that we are a community and we should have community values, not an individualistic value. I'm going to end with one short story. Just last night, I'm away, but a community member, so not a professional, they called about a person that was contemplating suicide. I'm not Mental Health Foundation, just to let you know. I am victim support, but they still called, and I feel honored, right? Now, this person, the community member, so not the one that actually was in the crisis, but the community member, she said, you know, Cassie, someone told me, just forget it. Don't even worry about it. It is not your problem. But I know this person. This person is my neighbor. This person is struggling for the last 8 months. Not a domestic violence situation, just a person that is struggling for the last 8 months. And she said, if I turn a blind eye to this situation, then what? Not only if this is on my conscience, but this is a person that I know and love, appreciate in the community. So I'm not going to turn a blind eye, but I can't handle it alone. And therefore, we went and we tried to figure out what resources, but also to what was the access. How were we able to access, and how was that person able to get the support that they needed to? So we stayed up. I tried to call the individual. They wouldn't pick up, but I'm going to still try. And I think that the individual has had the support because of the institutions. However, we are not an institutional sort of society, nor should we be. We should be a community of people that try to take care of one another. Yeah. St. Maarten is very, we're overdeveloped in one way and very underdeveloped in another. And our emotional intelligence that we had so instinctively is being sort of deadened. Dr. Jamila mentioned it. So I personally, as a member of the community, I'm not even talking as a professional, as a member of a community, I would like to see us be able to care for one another at the basic level. And then also to confront our own traumas, historically as well. We are an island. We have gone through slavery. I know that people don't like to talk about it, but those traumas still follow us today. And I'm going to end there. And guys, have a wonderful, beautiful Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you, Cassandra. That was powerful. We're going to close because of time's sake. I want to thank everyone, each and everyone that came out and support this vision and the great conversation we have started. I will be reaching out to each and everyone, especially the panelists, as we, under the vision that the Lord gave me to establish a community center, holistic community center, a healing trauma community center called the YECC. And by God's grace, now that there are grants, there are monies available that I know government, our local government can't help us with, but I tap into a grant that will help us establish this holistic community center. And however, we need each and every one of us to work together to heal this community from trauma, abuse, just a listening ear to sit down and talk. We all have to come together and be part of this movement to heal this island, because one more, as Cassandra said a while ago, is too many to lose by drugs, mental health care, taking their own life. But at this time, we will close this forum. Thank you very much. And I invite you and the media, those that are listening to me via whatever platform, that tonight we are starting the Global Women Conference. We have 5 dynamic speakers, anointed, God, purpose, given to such a time as this. Dr. Esther, that was not able to be here this morning. She's from Antigua. We have Dr. Natalie from Zimbabwe, that's one of the speakers. We have the Honorable Lady Nanton. I saw her a while, yes, Alexia, that's gonna be one of the speakers representing St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have this beautiful human being that just reached yesterday, Dr. Stacy from Nashville, Tennessee, and myself as a speaker. So from tonight, Wednesday, all the way to Sunday evening, 7:30 in this same building. Come in, it's for free. Invite a sister, auntie, a woman, a child, whosoever. Come in, we're going to impact women, we're going to transform life, we're going to restore, deliver, we're going to bring you back to your senses. Because when we have women that are healed, completely healed, we can heal this nation. Thank you very much. With this, we close. Thank you, and we are dismissed. We have some refreshing, we have refreshment, tea, coffee. Greet someone, and be back 7:30. Thank you, Cassandra.